Onion Lake Cree Nations Memorial Communiplex, where we are in part with National Addictions Awareness Week. We are going to have an addictions panel with myself, Brian Misto. We're going to go up here for a quick introduction. We got Joshua Leckie. He's from Onion Lake himself, and he's been through his issues, and he will get a chance to tell the story. Everybody up here is going to get a chance to tell the story. We got Tyler Lorenz, who is part of Residents in Recovery in Lloydminster. We got Rebecca Miller, part of Residents in Recovery in Lloydminster. And over on the other side here, we got Corporal Stephanie Chacon, representative from Onion Lake RCMP. And we got Judge Stephen Kreitzer over on the end. So let's get into it. We are going to be live on Facebook, YouTube, and we did just launch a TikTok channel. So, check all that out. Here's our young man over here coming in, a little bit late. Willis Janby is going to be joining us here tonight. Welcome, Willis, welcome. Anyways, let's get right into it. I want to just tell a little bit about my story with addictions. Growing up, I didn't really have a means of, or I didn't really think I had an issue with letting anything go, with actually talking or anything like that, until actually just not even very long ago, coming out of addictions. I found out that my problem was there was no outlet for me. I held on to so much things that it became overwhelming, and the thing that really broke me was a breakup. The breakup is what broke me the most. It made me feel like I was worthless. It made me feel like I didn't mean anything to anybody. That was the toughest thing that I had to go through. Coming in and out of addictions with that person, I didn't realize it was a toxic relationship until I came out of addictions and into recovery. Then I realized it was a toxic, just a bad mix. In and out of jail for I don't know how many years, 4 or 5 years, 10 months here, 6 months there, 5 months here, 8 months there, and then it started going into, 12 months here, and then getting out for 2 months, and then coming right back into jail, and then, going into 16 months, getting higher and higher, 26 months. And I had enough of it, I was just wasting my life. I wanted to change. 2018, I was out of jail for a little while that I really, really, really wanted to change. I started going to men's wellness groups. I started going to seeing a counselor at Onion Lake Wellness Center. So that counselor helped me understand what my issues were, because I related so much to his past. Like, I was able to relate to his story, and then I found that being able to take something from somebody's story and apply it to myself was actually helpful. So I took that and I kept using and looking and watching at other people's stories and applying something from myself to myself. It doesn't have to be anything big. It could be anything from waking up early in the morning to being positive throughout the day, or bringing value to your daily life. So I kept applying things more and more and more. And then, and I went back to jail for a little bit there, and I was looking at a significant jail sentence. So I applied for, a bail provision, and I was lucky enough to get it. I was lucky enough to to be accepted from Honey Lake Transitional Home, which I'm thankful for. They give me a chance. Our community gave me a chance to come back into the community. And, you know, some wise words were said to me in the courthouse that day from Judge Kreitzer that said, you know, these people are willing to give you an opportunity. Don't let them down. So, you know, I took those words seriously, and I made it a thing for myself to change and to advocate for change. So I continued my journey into recovery and, you know, went into treatment. Then from treatment, I came back to the transitional home and back into residence and recovery I went to after that, not long after that. I was there for a brief, short time where I was able to learn a bunch of tools that really helped me. There's so much support that I've come across along the way since I've changed my life around, and it's really good. I feel really good about myself. I'm positive. I'm thankful for 7Gen for, you know, giving me an opportunity to work and everything like that. But yeah, I think I'm a little bit off topic. Let's go back a little bit into my issues and how I dealt with them, you know. Being resilient, being able to get up off of, you know, something that knocks you down for a little bit is a really big thing. And it's huge to understand how to overcome whatever it is that's knocking you down, you know. It's really, a lot of it has to do with willpower. A lot of it has to do with who you surround yourself with. A lot of it has to do with supports that you have. And, you know, to utilize all the supports and to have everything there readily available when you fall down and when you start thinking about a relapse or start thinking about an issue that's going to lead to stress, that's going to lead to a relapse. Being able to battle those things before they turn into a physical relapse is a really good tool to have. And yeah, with that, I think I want to say that I'm really grateful. I want to say that I'm really grateful for my community. I'm really grateful for people that are there, willing to share or not willing to share, but willing to be an ear for me. Getting things off of my chest helps me a lot. Being able to speak to people individually on a daily basis helps keep my recovery fresh in my mind, because it acts like a reminder for myself. Like, I get reminded every day because I talk to people on a daily, you know, people that are struggling or people that don't have a place to live, or just anybody, anytime. If somebody wants to talk, I am there, and I keep that something for myself because I think it helps me a lot in my recovery, and I think it helps keep me grounded, and I'm thankful for that. But anyways, I think I'm going to pass this on. Oh, Leon Littlewolf is up here with us. Hey, Leon. Another speaker, a guest speaker that's going to sit with us, Leon Littlewolf right here. And yeah, one that came in late, Willis Janvier. Yeah. So with that, I think I'm going to pass the mic on to Leon. If you want to tell us a little bit about your story for 5 to 10 minutes. Okay. Sounds good. There you go, Leon. Thank you guys for listening.
I'll try to hold this from. You want to use it? No, I'll help.
Okay.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us here today. My name is Leon Little Wolf of Onion Lake, Saskatchewan, and I came to share a little bit about my story with you guys very briefly. Try and keep it brief as I can. I'll tell you a story quickly in a nutshell about me. Story goes back to 2008. I woke up in a hospital. I could not walk or talk when I first woke up from a traumatic injury I suffered. I stayed in a wheelchair for about close to 9 years. Then I began helping myself by going to wellness back in 2015. And since then, I've been educating myself with trauma and addictions, and through all that learning and hearing, listening, talking about my own stories, I discovered that I was living with trauma since I was a kid, since I was about 5 years old. I began drinking at about age 9. I became an alcoholic by about age 17. I got stuck in that bottle for many years. And it was hard talking about my traumas. But I got tired of living that lifestyle or living with those same thoughts and feelings every other day. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I was wondering why I was angry, mad, sad, you know. I was just a kid at the time, and all those childhood issues came with me into my adulthood. Fighting my trauma was not easy, but I had to start somewhere, and I started with an elder at the wellness. And then from there I worked with other helpers such as therapists, psychologists, addiction workers, or just anybody who's made it through this stuff, you know. I've gone to other rehabs to learn. I learned from other addicts who talk. I don't drink. I haven't drank in 12 years. But I still battle my other demons, such as I still smoke weed once in a while. I'm supposed to be taking antidepressants, but I don't take those. I just fight that stuff. But my road is not the same as everybody else's. Maybe similar in some ways. But I know everybody out there in every other reserve, everybody lives with a lot of trauma. I didn't know I was living with trauma until I just started talking about my own stories. When I began talking about my own stories, that's how I knew where to heal myself. It was through an elder who guided me through my trauma at the very beginning. So since then, I'm still working on my traumas, still working on myself. But if I told my personal story, it would take about a whole hour. But I don't have that kind of time today, so I think the biggest thing I'll let you guys know is you guys have the ability to heal yourself, because you're the healer yourself. And that's all I gotta say. Thanks.
My name is Joshua Leckie, and I'm from Onion Lake. Thank you for coming and joining us this evening. I too struggled with addictions from a very young age. It's probably around grade 5. Started experimenting with marijuana, and then high school I was drinking, and then I just snowballed from there. I just got in with the wrong crowd. Started getting into trouble, and it just continued on like that for years and years, and started going to jail. And when I'd go to jail, I'd want to change my life, make plans to sober up and say I'd go to rehab. But as soon as I got out, I'd call up some people who I knew, and I'd be right back in there. So struggling with that for a long time and just wanting out. And then finally in 2019, I think that was 2019, when I first started my first journey in sobriety, and that didn't last long, maybe 2-3 months. Ended up relapsing and progressing after that, and then ending up back in jail, and then getting back out, and then trying it again, not succeeding, ending up back in jail, and then this last time I was like, it's one or the other. It's either stay sober or just continue to live my life the way I was living it. So I got out on house arrest, and I just felt like the last chance for me, So I think getting out on that ankle monitor really helped me to stay out of trouble. And after learning, just really putting all my effort into learning a new way of life, going to meetings, doing programming, counseling, what else? Did lots of volunteer work as well. And it helped me to give back to the community in some sort of way. And then and then learning how to work a legit job after. So I've been working steady for 3 years now, and just so grateful for making that choice to sober up, and praying to Creator to put things in motion so that I could get on track, and places like Residence in Recovery having a bed available to me, and just going with that, and just succeeding and staying sober. And it was very difficult at first because I had lived my life for so long a certain way, and it was hard for me to give that up. But I knew changes had to be made, so I got off social media. Because everybody on there I had some sort of association with drugs and alcohol, and I'm glad I did that because it made it easier to focus on recovery. And during this sobriety journey, I've been through many difficult moments in my life. Hearing a judge tell me I'm looking at 3.5 years, and fighting it, and ending up getting time served after a couple of years of that, and the death of my brother from an overdose, and that was really difficult to experience, but I'm glad I was sober and I was able to be there for him and my family. There's also been a lot of good things in my life now, though. I have 2 beautiful girls. I have a loving fiance and 4 loving stepchildren who I'm blessed that I'm able to be a present stepfather for them, and just working towards my goal to become a journeyman welder, and going to school for my 3rd year here in March, April, and just looking forward to the future. And thanks for listening.
Thanks, Josh. I'm Tyler, and I want to thank Brian for inviting me out here. I actually grew up not far from here. I grew up over by Elkirk, so I went to school in Marwayne. My childhood was, you'd think pretty normal. Although I was bullied at school, and I had some mental health stuff that went undiagnosed for years, and I was really suffering as a child, and back then, I'm pretty old. It was just suck it up and it'll be okay. And we didn't go to see doctors or psychiatrists or anything like that back then. So, I suffered through it. I did graduate, but I had periods of time when I was in junior high and high school where I was highly suicidal. I've had a shotgun in my mouth and ready to end it all. And my answer to that was finding alcohol. And I started drinking heavily at the age of 15, and it really saved me. It probably saved my life. Had I not found alcohol, I probably would have killed myself. And that's just my unfortunate reality. When I had that first drink, I knew it was the answer to everything. And I continued that for many years. I did graduate. I went and worked on the rigs for a bit. I went to university for 5 years. I did not graduate. Drinking and drugging was a priority for me, and I went through most of my life like that. I had periods of 2 or 3 years where I had control of things, and I could keep a job. I worked sales in the oil field in Calgary, and I was switching jobs every year because they'd kind of figure things out. But I did maintain jobs for periods of time. Call me a functioning addict. I wasn't really functioning that well, but I did get married, had a couple kids, and my life. My life was really a disaster, but I never did anything about it because I didn't really think I had a problem. So I just continued to go through life like that, not even recognizing how disastrous my life was, and hard drugs, became a big part of my life. I disappear from work and from my wife and kids for a week or more at a time sometimes, and just be held up in a hotel room and not worry about anything except for doing drugs. And that was just my reality, right? Eventually, obviously my marriage did not survive. We did get divorced, and that was my opportunity for things to really go sideways. And I really couldn't keep it together after that. And that was around 1990, 98, 99. And my life spiraled completely out of control, right? And I kept trying geographical changes. I'd moved from Calgary to Lloyd, to Vancouver, to Victoria, back to Calgary, back to Victoria. Just bouncing all over, trying to run away from all my issues, run away from my addiction, run away from the people that I found myself with or in trouble with, run away from the law, and it was a real struggle. For pretty much from 1999 on, I was doing two things to feed my habit, and I did have jobs for brief periods of time. But realistically, I was either dealing drugs or stealing in order to feed my habit, and that was just my reality. I couldn't keep a job for more than 6 months, but I'd have enough money that I could buy enough drugs that I could support myself on that for a while. But even that would always fall apart, and I'd end up doing all of my drugs and not have anything, to get more to sell. So, and then I'd have to go steal, and then it was just this vicious cycle. And eventually, I ended up on the streets of Victoria and Pandora Ave, homeless, shooting up heroin, and my life had really just fallen completely apart. And, that was really the lowest I had ever been. My dad actually flew out from Lloyd and came and picked me up and drove me back here, and I went to the Thorpe, which again didn't last very long. I got kicked out within a week or two for throwing a chair at another client, and then it was just right back at it. I moved to Calgary, back to Calgary. I stayed clean for maybe 2 or 3 weeks, relapsed, and decided that, okay, I better move. So I moved to Victoria, stayed clean for 2 or 3 weeks, and relapsed, and things just fell right back apart. And it was just this cycle, right? And then trouble with the law, and the police would be, all over me there. So I'd move back to Calgary, and I'd move back and forth, Calgary to Victoria, a few times, and trying to run away from my problems, but they were on to me, and eventually everything just fell apart. I started using meth within this time, and once I started using meth, everything was over. I couldn't function. I couldn't stay out of jail. There was no rational thinking. At least back in those days, I'd have bouts of rational thinking where, I could evade the police in certain ways, and, hide things. As soon as I was, doing meth, I didn't care. So it was just like Josh, out for a couple weeks to a couple months and back in jail, serve your time, get back out, relapse right away because you go right back to where you were before, and back to jail. And every time I was in jail, I desperately wanted my life to be different. I desperately wanted to get clean. When I got out, I was going to do everything different. But when I got out, I did nothing different. And, I didn't even try recovery at all because, within minutes to hours of me getting out, I'd already relapsed. And so it was over. Until I'd get back in jail and get clean a little bit. I even had a difficult time staying clean in jail. So it was a real battle for me. And as much as I wanted to get clean, I didn't know how. I didn't know what I had to do to get clean. I didn't know the things I needed to do differently when I got out of jail. I didn't even know that I had to not have my buddies pick me up from remand or jail. That was really the biggest eye-opening thing that really changed things this very last time. And the big difference between my last stay in jail to every other time I was in remand or jail was the fact that I got to spend some significant time with an addictions counselor while I was incarcerated. And there was an addictions counselor in Medicine Hat Remand that took the time to really spend some time with me, for the 9 months I was there, and really just work on some stuff and come up with a different plan. So the last time I got clean, I got picked up. I got arrested in Gunn, Alberta. I had been stabbed a couple of days earlier. I had sepsis setting in, a pretty serious blood infection. My arm had pooled full of blood from the stab wound, and I was in rough shape, you know, and I got arrested because I just couldn't run. And I ended up in the Grey Nuns Hospital for a couple weeks under prison guard, and then in the infirmary in Edmonton, and I eventually got transferred to Medicine Hat. And, you know, at that point I had outstanding charges in 5 different cities or communities in the province, from Mayor Thorpe all the way down to Medicine Hat. And, you know, I just started to deal with my stuff, and I worked with this addiction counselor. We worked through some of the reasons why I did what I did, and she was so helpful in helping me understand addiction and that I did have a problem. You know, for the first time I really, truly believed that I had a problem and I needed to do something about it. And, you know, it came time where I was eventually going to get bail, which, you know, I'd been denied a number of times before that, but because I'd been in there for a while, I eventually got bail, and I got released into a program in Lethbridge. And, you know, I was in pre-treatment sober living for a period of time, and then I went to treatment, and then I went back into post-treatment sober living, and it really opened my eyes. Like, I thought, like, why haven't I done this before? Like, this is just, why did I waste so many years of my life? And I eventually moved back to Lloydminster after my last court matter. I ended up getting a deal because I was doing so well. I was on conditions for another, I think, a year and a half. And so I moved back to Lloyd and was on house arrest, so I couldn't really do anything. But I helped my neighbor, you know, combine and harvest. I stayed at my parents', and eventually, you know, I kind of started to look at my life, and you know, I had always had jobs where it was okay to be engaged in my addiction, right? I was a debt collector for American Express. You know, I sold water. You know, I did sales in downtown Calgary, sold pipe valves and fittings. So, you know, we got to entertain and take people out drinking all the time and going to hockey games, and you know, that was my life. Every job I had enabled my addiction. So I figured I had to do something different with my life in order for my life to be different. You know, they say you have to change everything. And so I did that. I started looking at my life. What can I do to change my life? So I decided to take a community addiction support program at Reeves College. I graduated from that. It's a small world. The addiction counselor that kicked me out of Thorpe, you know, 10 years earlier, was actually the facilitator for this program at Reeves College. So he knew my story quite well. And I just kept thinking the entire time I was there, why isn't there these pre-treatment sober living places everywhere? Like, the one thing that I contribute to changing my life around more than anything else was having somewhere safe to go when I got released from jail. That was really the one thing that made a difference more than anything else. And so I decided, with the help of my instructor, to start Residents of Recovery, and had a lot of support in the community, both here in Onion Lake and in Lloydminster, to do that. And so in 2018, we started with one house in Lloydminster. I lived in that house for a while. We eventually expanded up to 4 houses over the next year, and Residents of Recovery was born. And you know, there's been so many people that have the same story as me. Josh right here, Cheyenne, Rebecca, stuff, you know, that, you know, have similar stories, that they just needed a safe place to go to do this recovery thing. And, you know, it's if there's one thing that makes any difference more than anything else, it's having a safe place to go to start to work on this stuff. And without that safety, without those distractions, without people pulling me back into my old life, it just wasn't possible, right? Recovery is hard enough. I mean, you really just have to be somewhere safe where you can do that. So, and today I have a great life. In a couple months here, I'll be celebrating 10 years. And, I love my life today. Even though I'm actually on a mental health leave from my work right now, I worked the past 7.5 years straight, probably anywhere, I don't know, from probably nowhere near 40 hours, but probably more like 70 to 90 hours a week. So, it caught up on me, and, I need to take a little break right now. So that's what I'm doing, and taking care of myself, because this addiction thing never ends, right? No matter what. If I'm not taking care of myself, there's always a chance of ending up back to where I was. So thank you all for listening, and I'll pass it on to Rebecca.
Hello guys, my name is Rebecca Miller, and I am the house manager at Residence and Recovery Family Healing Center, and I am also an addict in recovery. Grateful to be here tonight. Thanks, Brian, for inviting me out. It's always a pleasure to come and, speak and share a bit of my story on, what's kept me here to be able to tell my story today. And so, always a pleasure. I think I'll just, I never kind of plan when I speak at events on what I'm going to share on or what's going to come up, right? I just kind of speak from the heart, and whatever, the Creator wants me to speak, I'll speak to. So I'm just going to tell a little bit about, what life was like, what happened, and what it's like now for me, right? And, I guess I'll start off by saying, I ran into an old probation officer of mine today. I was taking a mental health first aid course in Lloydminster the last 2 days, and I couldn't remember where I knew this lady from, and she pulled me aside and was like, "Oh my goodness, I didn't recognize that was you, Rebecca." And here it was my old probation officer from about 6 or 7 years ago, and she didn't even recognize me. And earlier I was showing some of my before and after picture before I was up here speaking, and it's pretty unrecognizable. So anyways, I grew up in BC, Cranbrook, BC. I'm a mountain girl. That's home to me still. I grew up in a single parent household, and, poverty. We were, food bank, bag days at the thrift store were like the bee's knees growing up for me. And, but I had a pretty good life. I had a pretty attentive mom. My mom was pretty old when she had me. I was a bit of an oops. And so she was a pretty hands-on mom. She was very dedicated to my education, my schoolwork, that sort of thing. So my memories going back, to my childhood I have pretty good memories. I was never really yelled at or hit or anything like that. I slept in the same bed as my mom from the day I was born till the day she got sick with cancer. And, I was 10 years old when my mom got sick, and she died that same year. And so for me, looking back, it was so normalized at the time for me to go to the hospital and spoon feed my mom when I was 10 years old and just watch her deteriorate. And so, after she passed away that year, I moved in with my sister and her husband, and they kind of raised me after my mom died for a few years. And that's when I moved out to Alberta. And life was so different for me after that. I moved to Lloyd when I was 13. And I, started socially drinking on the weekends and stuff. And I say socially because, that's what it was to me back then, right? It was normal for me to go to bush parties with my friends when I was 13, 14 years old, and, life of the party and drinking all the time. But I could hold up a job, and I could justify what I was doing because I still had some responsibilities, and I could work and, that sort of thing. And I was 15 years old the first time I touched hard substances. And when I started doing cocaine when I was 15 years old, the first time that entered my system, it was the first time that I didn't think of my mom. And so for me, it was that instant escape from feeling that grief and that loss, right? And from then on out, it was the answer for me anytime shit hit the fan in my life, essentially. When the going got tough and I didn't want to feel, I knew what worked best best for me. And I could find that in the bottom of a baggie, so I thought. Yeah, I got pregnant with my first son when I was 17 years old, had Jackson when I was 18. And by 21, I had 2 more kids, so I had 3 kids in my early 20s. You know, and as I got older and the more that I used, my addiction progressed. And in 2015, my sister, who raised me after my mom died, she also got cancer, and she passed away quite quickly in 2015. And from there on out, again, I went back to what I knew worked best, and that was substances, right? You know, over those years, from the time I think I was 16, the first time I went into a treatment center, until 30 years old, or just before I turned 30, I had probably been to almost a dozen different treatment centers, detox centers, institutions, wanting to get help, right? And you know, I knew I had 3 little boys at home, and everything in me wanted to find alternate ways to deal with life's problems. And yeah, no matter how bad I wanted it, I just found myself like a repeat relapser all the time. I just, you know, I could not find a way to cope with feelings. And so, yeah, in I don't even know what year it was, 2018 or 2017, 2017, Child and Family Services came in, and they took me in for piss testing, and they took my kids away. And at that point, I had been using crystal meth for about 3 years, IV drug user. It was pretty bad. And so you know, my dad came and took my kids from me, and I didn't see my kids for 3.5, almost 4 years after that. Yeah, and I think it was within 2 to 3 weeks of me losing my kids, I went to jail for the first time. And it was just kind of like I threw in the towel at that point. And, you know, that's when my problems with the criminal justice system kind of really kicked off. It was just kind of like a really black and white thinking, and I felt like I had nothing to live for. And so my partner and I at the time, we started using opiates, and I got really heavily involved with fentanyl. Yeah, I was in and out of jail. I think the first time I went to jail, I was in there for 6 months. And it was like all the getting and using and finding ways and means to get more. And I was that criminal. Like, I was Facebook famous. I was the one who didn't give a crap. You know, you'd see my picture posted on social media, or on like a poster on the front of a store saying, like, you know, this girl's wanted for shoplifting or credit card fraud or whatever it was. And I did that for a lot of years, right? And it was just this careless attitude, not caring or understanding who I was hurting in the community or the businesses and organizations that I was harming. For me, it was just about feeding my addiction. And when I started using opiates and fentanyl and heroin and stuff, it was like almost end game for me. Lost all control. Yeah, that went on for a while, and I was in and out of jail, and you know, the judge always threw the book at me. Not this judge, but yeah, like, he never gave me an opportunity. I remember sitting before the judge, and I'd be like begging for a CSO or begging to be put on an ankle monitor, and they're like, no, Rebecca, you have so many breaches, you don't even show up to court. And they'd throw the book at me and send me to Pine Grove or Fort Sask or whatever province I was in at the time. And so, you know, I'd go to jail, and I'd have all of these beliefs that I was going to get out, and I was going to stay clean, and I wasn't going to use anymore. But then I would go back to the same environment, right? The same partner who was using, still no kids and all of these things, right? Which was difficult for me. And so I'd feel that emotion, I'd feel that pain, and I didn't know what to do with it. So I'd use, right? So I didn't have to feel. You know, addiction for me was never about dying. It was about trying to live and not feel. Yeah, in 2020, I went to detox in Meadow Lake, and when I got out, the plan was my fiance was supposed to go to detox right after me, and he never went, and I came back, and I relapsed, and we were using, and so we decided to go on an environmental tour out to BC to try and get clean, where I grew up in Cranbrook, and we were out there for about 4 days. We white-knuckled it. Went through all the withdrawals of fentanyl, which, if any of you know, it's really difficult to come off of fentanyl. You know, and we made it through about 4 or 5 days, and we ended up meeting someone there who had our drug of choice, and we ended up picking up and using that night, and the next day at about 9 p.m. I woke up and found my fiance dead at my feet of an overdose. You know, people would think that that would have sobered me up, right? But addiction doesn't care, right? It doesn't care who you lose in your life or who you're hurting in your life. It's just so all-consuming. And yeah, so I had to call his mom the next morning and tell her son died. You know, I came back to Lloydminster, and, you know, after that, his mom put the trailer up for sale, and I was homeless on the streets after that. You know, breaking into apartments, trying to find somewhere warm to stay so I didn't freeze to death that last winter. You know, I remember waking up in the back of ambulances, police having to Narcan me 5, 6 times. The one time, 5 or 6 Narcans they had to give me to bring me to. And I remember coming to in the ambulance, and all I could think about was my kids. Yeah, that last year of my addiction was like tenfold, you know, and like I said, people that knew me on the streets, and Brian's one of them. There's a few people in this room who kind of knew me through some of the worst horror stories of my life. You know, people would ask me, like, you just lost Les, like, what is wrong with you? How can you keep doing this, right? But for me, it was, again, going back to that feeling of needing to escape and not feeling, you know, that loss, that grief. And you know, and that carried on. That winter was really bad. I picked up more charges. I was evading the police. And, you know, I used to have RCMP officers come into the bathroom at the Capri and stuff, and they'd think I was dead in the stall, and I'd be, you know, hiding out in there. And I remember multiple times police coming into, you know, different bathrooms at fast food chains and stuff, but I was just trying to, you know, either hide out or use, or I was knotted out, and or I was overdosed in stalls, and I'd have people come in and have to Narcan me. And you know, that last winter was bad. You know, I was probably doing enough fentanyl to take down an elephant. And by the grace of God, I landed in jail again, you know, and I can say that with gratitude today, right? I mean, I used to have my opinions about being incarcerated, and every time I'd, you know, get arrested, I'd pray that I'd get released, right? But for me, this last time I got picked up was the biggest blessing that ever happened to me. And so, yeah, I sat, and it was just a few months I was in there that last time. But for me, that gift of desperation came over. You know, I was desperate not to die, and I was desperate for my kids not to bury me like I had to bury my mom. And so for me, I was, just so desperate to not want to die. And I believed wholeheartedly with everything in me that when I got out of jail, if I used it, I would die. And I believed that to my core. And so, and I didn't want that. I never used with the intention on dying, right? But that last time was so scary for me that I thought I would die. And so, you know, I took the steps to go door to door from jail to residence and recovery program. And so I did that. I went and you know, I know people when I came in there, and I had a bad reputation in Lloydminster, a really bad reputation. And there was clients in there at the time, and people that are like, you're bringing her here, you know, she's not going to last a week. You know, when I still had charges I was dealing with, and at the time my probation officer, a new one, she put me on a CSO where I was able to, because I was in sober living, serve my jail sentence in the community. And she thought I wasn't going to last a week on a CSO because of my record, right? My history with breaching and not complying with court orders and stuff. And so, you know, I ended up going into residence and recovery, and that's what I needed, right? Like, I had been to 42-day treatment centers over and over again, but it wasn't long enough, right? I had no aftercare plan. So I needed something long-term. Yeah, I stayed in residence and recovery, pre-treatment and post-treatment, 21 months as a client, or close to 21 months, I believe, as a client. And I was actually the first family to move into the family reunification unit with my 3 kids in 2021. And I stayed there for about 14 months after that with my children. And moved out. And, you know, through that time, I look at my accomplishments since I got clean in March of 2021. And it's really simple things that people like normalize, like, you know, getting my license. You know, I drove for 15 years illegally, and got in a lot of trouble for that. Brian knows. but little accomplishments like that might seem really small to some people are really big to me. I went back to school. I got my grade 12, my second year of recovery, and that was a big deal to me to be able to say I have my grade 12. All those little things, showing up to like sporting events for my kids, all those things that people just normally are supposed to do were huge deals for me to be able to do in my life. And, I eventually started working at Residents in Recovery, a few months after I left the program as a client. And I started in the daycare initially and then started as a client support worker. And now I'm some way, somehow, house manager of the family treatment program that, saved my life at one point. So I've kind of come full circle. My life is very different today. And like for those of you who know me, like Lloyd was such a bad place for me. And it was so tough. I had so much shame around going into some businesses in my community. I have a lot of amends still to make to a lot of organizations, business owners, individuals in Lloydminster and Onion Lake and surrounding communities, and I did a lot of damage, a lot of harm. And so for me, when I get asked to speak at events like this, or, this is my indirect amends of giving back and telling my story, because as much guilt and shame as there is around, some of the things I've done in my past, I also know my story consists of a lot of resiliency, right? And it took a team of people that met me where I was at, that cared, that supported me through that, because I didn't have family, I didn't have any of that, right? But I had people that just stepped up and believed in me when I didn't believe in me at all, right? And so, against all odds, I'm here, right? And it just goes to show, I think, that, anyone can pick themselves up from, the depths of addiction, no matter how low you are. Recovery is 100% possible. And I think we're all here, as proof of that today, that, no matter how hard it gets or how low we can get, that change is possible. So, thanks again for letting me share here tonight, Brian, and with that, I'll pass it on. Thanks.
Danse. I gotta stand up. I can't sit still anymore. Making me anxious. How you guys doing? Pretty good? How's the food? Thank you, everybody. It's nice to hear their stories. I remember each and every one of them, we've got a story where we're able to relate. And, every time I was drunk and high and I was trying to phone, I'd just be walking around like this. You ever do that? You're trying to hold it together for your supervisor. You're making yourself believe that you're okay. That's how I was. So I try to stand up. I got ADHD, so I can't sit still. But, thank you, guys. I was supposed to speak yesterday, so I'm just going to take the time because they didn't schedule it accordingly. I guess they didn't know the powwow was on. But today I got to present to your students, your kids. And it's always something special for me when I can connect with young people and talk about suicide and grief and loss and addiction and a lot of the trauma from when we're children. I grew up in that alcoholic home where, they sold drugs and bootleg. My mom was a hustler, big time hustler. I remember this guy bribed us with $2. He said, well, this was the 90s, $2 was a lot. So he said, get $2, go get some candy. And he broke in, and he took all the booze. I didn't know what it was all about. Later on, I traveled to the far north to go play hockey. What did I do? You take booze and you sell it to the community. So addiction is something, our environment that we deal with. And I talk a lot about this stuff in my presentation. Addiction has nothing to do with alcohol or the drugs. It is the pain that I carried, because this is about me, it's not about anybody else. The pain that I carried as a kid, I didn't know how to deal with. You talk about emotions. How many people punch doors when they're pissed off? What is underneath it, the hurt, the pain? As Brian mentioned, a heartbreak. I remember I was in treatment and my woman left me for someone else. I would sit there and cry, and I still miss her today. but she's gone. I'm kidding. But as I continue on, I learned that, on my way to Nanaimo, BC, I remember there was a liquor store to my right, and as an addict, we know how to take risk and push buttons. I know what this intake's going to be like. I didn't care about my job with Syncrude. See, I worked for 14 years with Syncrude Canada in Fort McMurray. I had a good salary. I thought I was doing good. My child support is paid, but I couldn't see my daughter because I'm running around chasing women with a girlfriend here, and it has nothing to do with it. See, I had to fill this void inside of me. So it hurt, right? I talk about this with young people. One of the things that young people do, and I did, and I shared this with Brian, when I was a little kid, you see, I grew up on welfare. How many people grew up on welfare and want things a lot? I was like that. So now, in my recovery, as a little kid, Christmas is coming around. A lot of kids, they're afraid of the holidays because parents go out and drink and they're going to be yelling. I know that much because I work with young people now. That I got to share with you guys. So for me now, as a kid, I wanted things. In the last 4 years, I lost my dad 5 years ago now. That made me want to go get a university degree. 2 weeks ago, I graduated with an Indigenous social work degree. See, I left the oil field and went and did university. I started a podcast. I've got a big following on social media, and that's allowed me to live. But the things that I do for myself in recovery is that, every the holidays come around, Christmas, I buy myself something. I wrap it up. I know what it is, but it's to heal that little child in me. One little Christmas, to create that excitement. And my daughter, she's 14 years old now. What we do is she'll decorate the whole house. One of my friends said, "You're like a mom." I said, "Yeah, I was raised by a single mother," right? How many single moms here? My mom's a hustler, boy. She struggled quite a bit. But that is my recovery. When I go and speak, I don't share no horror stories. I'm reminded of a couple. When you go to jail, you learn to flush after every push. When you got a cellmate. I remember I got charged with assault with weapon, because my sister was sexually assaulted. I wanted to kill that guy. You don't see that in me now because I don't show you. I don't talk about that often. I don't need to. It's not about how big or how crazy your stories were in addiction. It's about how we can recover and share it with the next person who feels like they can't do it. That is what recovery is. That's why you go through the steps. I hear some of the language from the 12-step meetings. 12 is not first. Admitting is first. 12 is going to the next person and being able to relate, right? I relate to people. I miss my dad. As a young kid, I miss my dad. I shared this with them. My dad was gone. He lived a street over, but I never seen him, right? Every time he would come into my birthday, give me a $100 bill, and he'd kiss me, feel his mustache and the booze on his mouth. I miss him. He's passed on now. I had to bury him. He lost his battle to cancer. The year before that, I lost both my grandparents. The year before that, my brother committed suicide. Months before that, my cousin committed suicide. My sister was shot. You see, I share this with you because I had to go through it in recovery. It's just one day at a time. I didn't know what it meant. My grandfather, who was 40-some years sober, he said, it was one day at a time. It was hard to grasp one day at a time. Today, I know that whatever I'm going through, it's just for today. That's the simplest way I can put recovery. you know, today I don't have a record, lied to the courts. Just kidding, Judge. But I thank God for alternative measures because, you know, being in an orange coverall and Crocs that didn't match, it wasn't my style, you know? So I had to do my probation. I just, these guys reminded me of my probation. I never followed anything. Oh, man. They told me, because I got charged in Saskatchewan, I had warrants for 2 years because I lived in Fort McMurray. Laloche, we got a Winter Road, and they couldn't arrest me over there. So, you know, that's the justice system. And I could have killed somebody. That's the truth. But these guys reminded me of it. And, you know, I got through it. I remember my PO, man, she was tough. But I wasn't afraid. My life went to the point where I just drive down there and that was it, drunk and high. But today, I get to share this story, that recovery is possible. You know, university degree 2 weeks ago, I struggled. I wanted to quit many a times. And doing these things have allowed me to live, be present for my daughter. I have a son too. My son, you know, in the first year of recovery, they tell you don't get in a relationship. That's my boy. And I think it should be 5 years. So if you're new in recovery, just be alone. It's okay. You're going to be okay, right? It gets lonely, but it's all right. Sometimes you want to cuddle with somebody, go on Tinder. That was the first 5 years. Now I don't reply to anybody. But I've been able to live one day at a time, you know, and I'm thankful. I still call my elders. This is something that's very tough. That first year, that first treatment center I went to in Kamloops, I met this elder. He lived the Indian way, but he was a white man, because that's how he sobered up in on a res treatment center in BC called Round Lake. So he lived that way, and he taught me how to smudge. Being from the north, I wasn't raised in that. I speak Dene, I'm fluent Dene, but we didn't have the drum. We didn't like you guys do. Today I carry the drum, but this guy showed me how to smudge, and I'm still processing this because it's only April. You know, he's been through this whole journey for the past 10 years. And back in April, I get a phone call that, you know, he took his own life. He was 79 years old. So, holding things in doesn't matter how old you are, especially the men. The men are always tough. The men are told not to cry, not to tell anybody. Hold it in, and that's what he did. He held it in. He didn't share with anybody. I cried for 4 days straight. I continue to grieve I'm going to grieve the rest of my days. You know? But that doesn't mean I got to have a drink or use cocaine. So my message is that recovery is possible. My kids haven't seen me drink or use drugs. My daughter has heard this story. She's 14 years old. She's quite the character. You know, it's a beautiful thing. Every week we go for dinner. The same spot, the same food, we eat the same thing. You know, I get to create that. I get to change the process of how she gets to live. I get to show up for her sports events, watch her play volleyball. That's what recovery is, you know? And I'm thankful one day at a time. I get to do this and talk to interview people and share language and culture. I was in Northwest Territories last week. Tomorrow I'll make my way to Fort Mac and I'll MC and see. I sobered up in Fort McMurray. It's not about, people think that it's, we can't sober up in the place that got us drunk and high. For some it might be, you know, but I believe there's recovery everywhere. A lot of sober people here. Maybe some of you are a few days. I know some of the young kids are a few days sober. That's the sad part. Kids today are trying to get sober. People just come in, grab food, and leave. Maybe I wish they would just hear something to pass along to some of our relatives on the res. But that's not the case. So I thank you guys for being here. I think that's Eric. Eric, is that you? Yeah. I remember Eric when I was 15 years old, I think we came here, something like that. And my brother Riley stayed here, and so it is something cool to be able to do this and share this journey with you guys. So I want to thank Brian. Let's give him a round of applause here. It's when you can go through that and give back to your community and your people to educate them in a positive way. We got enough negativity around on Facebook. Every day I got to delete people that are racist on my pages. Lateral violence, eh? One last thing, I'll leave you one last thing. Lateral violence every day. How many people see it on social media? Nobody? You guys don't want to raise your hand? Yeah? You know what? I asked the same thing to your students. I said, how many see adults fighting on social media? How many do you think raise their hand? All of them. My message to you is be kind to one another on social media. You never know if that next person is going to take their life, and we got to open the hall for another funeral. So it's something with culture. One last thing, when my daughter was just a baby, a couple of years sober, we were on our way to Edmonton. I always share this story, and because it's pretty cool. I was 8 years sober, woke up at my mom's house, my daughter in the back. I had to go present at a youth conference with the Confederacy of Treaty 6. And we saw an eagle up flying high. You know what the meaning of an eagle? Someone's looking after us to receive an eagle feather. So I always pass this on. My daughter's half Munyao, but she says she's Dene. She's proud Dene. So I'm driving and I'm getting closer to this. And I'm tearing up because I've never been sober this long. We have a piece of cake and move on. And we get right above it, and it's not an eagle, it's a crow. So the Creator tells us a way to laugh a little. It's okay to laugh through the pain, and humor allows us to tell us where we're fragile. So don't be shy to do that with your bros and hold each other accountable. So, Masi Cho, hi, hi.
That one is starting to crackle again, too. Maybe the batteries are...
Okay, Brian, I don't like you, and I'll tell you why. You put me after this guy? Like, geez. Yeah. Well, it's my fault. I like coming out to these things because it gives me a chance to talk to people about my work and stuff like that. I'm always afraid that when people talk with me that they think they have a certain thought of who I am. And it's probably some guy who comes from a fairly good family, probably like Regina. I used to make people guess as to where I was from and what my parents did, and they'd always pick like Regina, and they'd say your parents were probably a teacher, which I thought was nice because I think that means they think that I like helping, teaching people. So, but that's not where I'm from, and it's not what my parents did. I'm from over on the other side of the province. There's a town called Flin Flon, Manitoba. I'm not from there. There's a town that's right close to there called Creighton, Saskatchewan, and I'm not from there either. If you drive about 10 miles further into the bush, there's a place called Denair Beach, and it's 400 people, and that's where I'm from. We would think if we came to Onion Lake that we'd hit the big city, because you guys got 7,000 people, you guys got restaurants and stuff. That's big city stuff. My mom was a secretary who collected social assistance partially to raise us. And my dad, he had a bunch of jobs when he was younger, like a bunch of them, because he couldn't hold a job. And then eventually he's too drunk, and he would just kind of find ways to try to find alcohol. He did have a job for a while where he traveled away on the weekdays, and then he'd come home on the weekends. And by that time, my mom had taken control of the house. And so he wasn't allowed to drink in our house. So what he'd do is he'd drink the whole week when he's away working. Then he'd come home, and he'd have to be sober for 2 days. But he was so addicted by that point in time. I can remember one time sitting in the living room, and he started flopping around on the floor, and his eyes rolled back in his head, and I thought he was dying right in front of me. And I'd taken a course on how to help people in medical distress. So I went over to him, put him in the recovery situation, and then his eyes rolled back, and I thought he was dying. So that's when I bapped him right in the chest. That's apparently not what you're supposed to do. So, but he lived. I didn't kill him, which was a good thing. But eventually, we threw him out of the house, and he went to, I think, Edmonton or something, and then he turned yellow, and then he died. That's my background. I married a young lady from over around Yorkton, and she had kind of a very similar background, except her dad actually quit drinking. So I tell you that because I like people to know that I'm not some guy from Regina whose parents were teachers who doesn't understand what addiction's all about. I know what addiction's about because I've lived it my whole life, basically. I really love coming out to things like this because too often people think about addictions and they think about it as that's it. I mean, your life is over pretty much. But you don't have to be like my dad. You can decide that you're going to do something about it. And we get to hear all these stories. Like, I love these stories. They're so cool. Like, as bad as my life was growing up and how bad our addictions was in our family, it's nothing compared to some of your stories. Like, your stories are wild. And then I hear that, like, oh, and this guy put together residence and recovery. And this person's looking after the housing of residence recovery. And this guy over here is raising 7 kids or 6 kids and getting his welding course and doing great things. And this guy's talking about, being able to go to his kids' soccer games or volleyball games. And I'm sure the kids are looking around and somebody's nudging the other one and saying, "Who's that?" "Well, that's my dad." And there's pride, and that's what's happening. And that's what, driving in here, and I see all the signs about, sober living is great and stuff on and I'm like, this is so exciting. And Onion Lake is such a great place, and things are moving. There's so many success stories out here that it's just exciting to see, and I'm glad that we all came here to listen to some others today. And so, thank you very much.
I'm also not a guy from Regina with Teachers for Parents. My name's Stephanie. I'm new to Onion Lake. I've just been here about a month, so I'm still learning the ropes and getting to know some people, so thank you for having me here today. I missed some pretty incredible stories, and I'm really sorry I had to run. If we can already also restart if you want, but I'm joking. So I have spent most of my career in northern communities, and I have seen addictions at its worst. In my short month here in Onion Lake, I've seen some pretty bad addiction problems as well, and it's already breaking my heart. On the other side of it is all the supports that are in place and the things that we have in the community that people can turn to and go to the detox center. I'm just astounded on the resources that we have here. And just talking to some people before this began, I haven't heard this many success stories in my whole career. And I think that's a credit to the community and all the resources that we have in place here. Sadly, I have not seen that many success stories where I was. We didn't have any resources in those communities that I was at. And you see the difference from there to here. And I think you should all be really proud of the community that you have and everything that you have in place. I'm sorry I don't have that much to say, but I just want to thank you all for including me here and welcoming me to the community. So.
Let's have one more round of applause for everybody up here for sharing their story. You know, it's a really tough thing to do, to come up here and share what we have, you know, what we went through and everything like that, you know, and I really appreciate everybody for coming up here, you know. Thank you guys for coming here. Thank you guys for coming to be here. I think we're going to take a quick little break, a quick little health break, 5 or 10 minutes or something like that. And when you guys come back from your break, I think we're going to have some pizza magically appear on the back table. And yeah, we'll be going through some door prizes here. So if you haven't signed in at the door, get signed in, because we're going to do door prizes. And there's a bunch of stuff, nice stuff to give away here. We're getting to the fun part of tonight now, because I think everything is kind of drastically, no, but. Okay, let's take a quick break. We'll pause, break for about 10 minutes or something like that, and then we'll come back in with some Q&A. So get your questions ready. Our panel is going to sit in for about a half hour, some Q&A, and we'll answer your questions the best we can. Thank you. You know, be a presence here, be a presence in our Communiplex Hall. We will be getting to the door prizes as soon as the door prizes are names are finished off and ready to go for picking out of the bowl. So if you guys want some pizzas, help yourself to pizzas. There's a line over there ready to serve you. Don't be afraid. I'm gonna get some pizza. I want some ribs. You guys are holding out. Okay, everybody, it's time for some draws. So, we got our trusty draw card making feller here, and we are going to pick one name. So, the next winner that comes up is going to pick the next name and must be in attendance to get the door prize. What should we start with here? What should we start with here? Not this water, not that toque. Yeah. Okay, okay. All right, let's go. One name out of the draw barrel. Here we go. Name number one. We are going to be doing the coffee mug. We'll do the coffee mugs first. We got Pearl Cook. Pearl Cook, you are the winner of the draw number one. Must be in attendance. Where are you? There she comes. Look at her come. Look at all that. Give her a round of applause, everybody here. There we go. There we go. Attaboy. Attaboy, girl. Choose a name for us, and then we'll give you your beautiful coffee cup. Yeah, this is what you're getting right here. All right. What do we got here? The next one for the next coffee cup, Kelsey Carter, winning himself a beautiful coffee cup, something to drink coffee out of during a long work day. We all know you work well and you work long hours, so congratulations. Pick a name for us here. All right, hand it to that young feller there. There you go. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming. Brett Littlewolf. Brett Littlewolf. Brett Littlewolf. If you're in the house, come on down. You won yourself this lovely little teddy bear coffee mug right here with marshmallows and hot chocolate. Oh, look at that. Ooh, you can share with her, eh?
How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Here you go. Congratulations. The next one is Amber Wolf. Amber Wolf. Here you go. Look, you get another one of those. This one is a penguin. Penguin, little hot chocolate. Oh, there you are, right here. Hey, there you go. Congratulations. Choose a name for us, please. Thank you. You can get that. Next one is a polar bear hot chocolate. Danielle Mentuck. There we go. Look at this. Look at this. Hey, there's the enthusiasm we need right there. Congratulations. Here you go. Pick a name for us, please. Next, we're going into 10-piece grooming kit with durable travel case. Jonathan Bear. Oh, hey, there he is. All right. There we go. There we go. Choose a name for us, Jonathan, right there. Just one. Just one. We got. No, we already did that one. That one actually, it says Gisagao on it, but she just got a prize, so can't win twice. Okay. Nice try though. Maybe if it wasn't back to back, maybe it could have had a chance, but Rebecca Miller, come on down. We got another grooming kit here. Come over here and choose a name for us, please. Let's go into this right here. Beautiful Gap scarf and toque combo. Daniel Mountain. Daniel Mountain, if you're in the building. Daniel Mountain, where are you? You might be on the ice surface. Must be in attendance. Must be in attendance. So if he's not back by the time we're done, we're going to redraw. How do you guys like that? Can you grab it? Are you Daniel? All right, you can take that.
I'll give it to him.
Stepdad. All right, hey, choose a name for us. All right. Okay, next. Look at this. This one will keep you warm. When your boyfriend or your gitsumus or your whoever is not home and you're home alone, this one's going to keep you warm. Jay Champagne. Oh, Jay. Oh, exactly what you need. Something to keep you warm at night. Come choose a name for us, Jay. Right here. Right here. Choose a name for us. We'll get into this right here. Beautiful box of chocolates. Look at this. Look at that. That's awesome. Wyatt Wolf. Wyatt Wolf. Are you here? Hey, give that young fella a round of applause right there. Gonna get some chocolate wasted tonight, eh? Hey, right on. Choose a name for us, please. All right. Dwayne Cardinal. Come on up and get this young fella, this lovely little. Look, you got earmuffs. Hey, right on, Dwayne. Hi. Choose a name for us here, please. Okay, we're going to do this green blanket over here. Jim Jr. Jim Jr. Are you in the house? Jim Jr. Is there a Jim Jr.? Right here, look at this guy. Hey, right on. Right on, good show. Choose a name for us right there, young man. All right, look at this. This is going to keep you warm, right?
Yeah.
Hey, right on. Good stuff. Okay, I think we'll go with this other box of chocolates right here, and then we'll... Donna McDonald is getting this one right here. Round of applause, everybody. I think we'll do the rest of them, and then we'll get into some Q&A because we don't. Hey, right on. Exactly what I wanted, she said. Okay, for this one, we're going to go over here to. We're going to do some. I don't know, what do you call these? Glasses for skiing or something like that. Ski glasses. Ron Jr. Harper. Ron Jr. Harper. Is there a Ron Jr. Harper in the house? If he's not, somebody text him, call him, send your smoke signals. Get him over here. If he's not here by the time we're done, then we're doing a redraw. Next one. Next one right here. Oops, missed this guy. Cassandra Dillon. Round of applause there, Cassandra Dillon. Come on up here and get yourself these beautiful ski glasses. You know, it'd be nice to have these, you know, back in the day when we were young, riding in the back of Muslim's truck. Hey, that would have been cool. Then we could look over the top of the truck and not get all the bugs in our eyes and face and stuff. All right. Choose a name for us, please. Next, we are going to be doing this JVC headset right here. And the bidding starts at, wait. Delvin Opisanow. Delvin. Delvin. Oh, tuto ano ta, pinata. Choose a name for us. And whoever likes looking at themselves is going to win this one. This one is going to go next. This is a nice little mirror. It says Hollywood style, so I don't know what that means. Maybe you're an aspiring actor. We already did that guy. That guy's in there twice. Oh. Here you go. Here you go. Sorry about that. Congratulations. There you go. Nice headset. Stephanie Timbry. There you go. Stephanie wins herself a beautiful mirror that you can put up. Look at yourself. Positive affirmations. First thing in the morning. Come choose a name for us. These things look really cool. Look at this. These are snow skates. That's going to be cool. That's going to be fun. What do we got there? Dawn Mentuck. You're going skating in the snow. Dawn, right here. There it is. See, you can tell she's the mother of over there, eh? Same thing, same energy. Right on. Right on. Then this basketball game is next. There you go. You can go skating in the snow by yourself. That's going to be fun. Melanie Mountain. Melanie Mountain, are you here? Are you here? Round of applause for Melanie Mountain here, ladies and gentlemen. Awesome stuff, awesome stuff. There you go, congratulations. You can play basketball with your boy, chill out. Choose a name for us right here. Kisko. Let's done. Pick one. Piagantutna. Alrighty. Okay, I think we're going to go into a watch. Let's do one of these watches. Let's do this one. Silver looking watch right here. Tahari brand. Craig Dillon. Craig Dillon, if you're in the house, come on over here and get yourself this watch. Craig Dillon. No Craig Dillon? Let's put this aside. And Craig's got, how long is it going to take us to get over this, man? 2 minutes. Okay, let's go with this little JBL speaker majigger thingy. No Craig Dillon, no Craig Dillon. Okay, you announce this one with enthusiasm. Go.
Navara Wolf.
Navara Wolf. Navara Wolf. Navara. Who wants to practice those syllables? Navara Wolf. This little one right here? Yeah, a round of applause for this little one right here. Come on over here, Navara. Come over here and come and get this. Come get this. Come get this right here. This is yours. You just won. Oh, boy, right on. Hey, give her a round of applause, everybody. Here. Come on. Here it is right here. She should get a prize for youngest winner. Hey? Hey, there you go. Say thank you.
Me.
Oh, yay. Right on. That's awesome. What do we have left? A watch? And a radio control. Oh, that's going to be cool. That's going to be cool. Oh, he made it. Ron Jr. Harper made it. You made it on time. You won yourself a Hurley, whatever they are. No. Yeah, actually, yeah. You can pick for that last one right here. Or wait. If this one is not here, you can pick the next one. Okay. This is for the watch. Kelly Zacharias. Look, he just walked in the room over there too. Look at this guy. It's fixed, eh? It's fixed. Kelly, how did you know your name was going to get called here, Kelly? Eh? How does that happen? Yeah. You're just here for another piece of pizza and you get a watch out of it, hey? Choose one for us here. Okay, this one is, for this thing is probably fast. Check that out. All right, who is it?
Cole Waskowicz.
Cole Waskowicz wins a beautiful RC car, you know. Now you can hang out by yourself for real, chill out. I don't know if it's 4x4, but it should be good. All right, congratulations. Okay, we got one more right here. Craig Dillon, if you're here, if you're not here, we're gonna do a redraw. Craig Dillon, redraw. We're doing a redraw. Cole, you wanna come and choose the last name here, Cole? Cole's coming back here to choose the last name for this redraw on this beautiful silver watch. And after we're done this, we're going to go back into our panel seating and we're going to take some Q&A from you guys here that are here. If you guys have a question for us, something about addictions, recovery, or anything like that, we'll do our best to answer. So yeah, with that, let's get into this here. What does this say?
Joe Stonechild.
Joe Stonechild. Joe Stonechild, a stampina so up ishmugans. Hey, there it is. That concludes our door prizes. So if we could have the panelists come back up to the table up here and we will get into our Q&A for this evening. Thank you, Joe. Again, a round of applause for all the winners here tonight, everybody. Thank you. Thank you guys for coming out and participating. Panelist. Willis. Tateain. Oh, there you are. Didn't see you. And then Leon. Huh? Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. All right. If everybody's ready, Leon, Tanteain. He might be out for a smoke right now, but yeah, I'd like to open up the floor here now for some questions that you guys might have here, right here in the crowd. Are we able to get questions off of the live feed too? So if you guys out there listening, if you guys have questions for any of the panelists, like don't be afraid to chime in onto our live feed on 7Gen Facebook, 7Gen YouTube, you know, just chime in. Get your questions out there if you couldn't make it here tonight. So with that, is there any questions for that you guys might have for anybody that's up here tonight? Anybody, come on.
I have a question. Might as well start it off.
Okay, go.
What is one of your guys' your biggest success from then to now?
Well, I would say for me it was starting residence and recovery.
Go that way.
For myself would be well, so many things. Probably just pursuing my dream of becoming a journeyman welder would be the first one, and yeah.
For me, I think my biggest success would be rebuilding my relationship with my children, and I'm still working on that, but that's probably my biggest success, I'd say.
Yeah, mine's very similar too. I get to wake up in the morning and take, my daughter lives with her mom. We have a good relationship, her mom and I. We don't fight. We don't fight about child support or you're not getting the kid or nothing. We have a good relationship. In the morning, I can take her to school and yeah, so that's something very special. There's a lot of things, but that means more to me than anything that's any kind of physical award or something like that.
What's your biggest success?
Do you have any more questions?
I'd like to add to that before we move on to another question. I think for myself, the biggest success, just turning my life around is a success in itself, and I really like that. I think that's my biggest thing, is being able to be a part of the community in a way that is impactful, I think is a success that I like to take away from this.
Anybody else have any questions? Tyler, I got a question for Tyler. What's the square root of 111?
What's the, say that again?
I'm just kidding. There's no, that's a false question.
Oh.
Just trying to keep busy here. I'm just going to come in and grab the questions from people.
Right.
Ernie?
I have a question. Okay, this one is kind of for everybody up here. If you had a message to share for yourself when you were lost in addictions, what would that message be?
Never give up, and change is possible. Never give up on trying to sober up and dreaming of a better life, because it is possible.
Yeah, I would echo that. Like, no matter how many times you try, just keep trying. It'll stick eventually as long as you keep trying. It'll work.
What's the question?
You have
That's a tough question, Brian. Repeat the question. Like, what would I say to myself? Like, while I was still suffering?
Okay, say right now you made your change in life, right? So going back to when you were lost in addiction, right? If you had a message that you would give to yourself back when you were lost in addiction, what would your message be to yourself?
The first thing that came to my mind, if I'm like light bulb, so when I was sitting in segregation, I read a book, and I remember writing this quote on my cell wall, and it said, "Out of tragedy, the truly great emerge. Make every setback a lesson and search for something to gain from it." And for me, like, it just stuck with me, right? And so I think of, like, my past does not define me, right? And that was the thing that kept me stuck, is like I was too ashamed to pull myself out, and what are people going to think of me? And just like all of that shame kept me sick for a long time. So I think like my actions and addiction doesn't define who I am as a person.
So what would I say? I would tell myself, just reach out, just ask for help, right? I think for a lot of times too, and we hear this in a lot of 12-step, people don't like the word God, But I think as addicts, you know, we complain about. I remember when my first detox, we ran out of food and they had to make chili 2 days old and they added water but we were complaining about that. Didn't matter a week ago when we were drunk and high, right? I think as addicts, and then a lot of people complain about God. Well, why are you afraid of God? You know, so it's just, don't be afraid to ask for help and keep your faith. One quick little story is I still do this today. You remember the show Duck Dynasty? Right? When I was drunk and high, I would fall asleep to it because that's what I wanted. They had faith, they had family, they were loving. So that was like my comfort when I would fall asleep. I still fall asleep to it. Right? So it's some of the little things. Just ask for help. Thank you.
I'd say pretty much the same thing in terms of just ask for help, because there's so many people out there that want you to do better. Like, if you ask any one of these guys up here, they'd all like give you the shirt off their back to help you out of addictions, because everyone's excited about the possibilities that you have when you do quit, and the good that you can bring to everyone that's around you, your parents, your children, your coworkers, your community. So we all are rooting for you, and there's a lot of success out there to celebrate. So
I would just say, don't give up on trying. May not happen the first time or the second time or the third or the 20th, but it will happen if you want it to happen, and just keep reaching out and keep asking for help and keep trying.
Leon, let me repeat this in case you lost it. If you had a message to share to yourself, way back, when addiction was hard on you, what would your message be to yourself?
My message to myself would have been, I had to really dig down deep and find the strength and courage inside me just to let go of some issues I was dealing with, and find the right person to let my stuff go to. And I know a lot of us had faced adversity at one time in our lives, and well, I think if you really want to have a good life, you got to fight for it. And that's all I've been doing all this time, is just trying to give myself a good life as best as possible. Nothing is perfect for anyone. At least I don't think so. No. You can't give up on yourself. I didn't. I fought a lot of battles just to be here. And just keep on battling every day, as best as you can, the best way you know how.
Thank you for that, Leon. For myself, if I could just kind of add into that question. For myself, it's like there's so many services out there and so many people that want to help, that see you struggling, that want to help, that care for you. Just reach out as much as you can. Try and find the way, try and find that route that you personally need to take to battle your addiction, to be successful in your recovery, to be successful in your change. So, like if that was a message that I heard, you know, when I was lost, and that probably would have been, you know, something I would have took and, you know, applied it to myself. Any questions from the crowd? We got one in the back there. We got two.
Oh, yeah. Can I have your attention, please? Yeah. Just kidding. Before I ask anything, I just wanted to mention a couple of things here regarding your panel there, Brian. I really commend you in your efforts to bring the proper messages to the people in the community. Like that individual said over here, it's unfortunate that some of us, you know, we choose to just come to these places just to come and collect some food and walk out of here after you finish eating, and not really getting involved in the kind of event. It's unfortunate, but I really commend your process right now, tonight. As you're speaking, I'm really listening, taking in a lot of the stuff that you're talking about there. And especially that individual there, that Mushy Joe guy there. What's his name?
Willis Janvik.
Willis, yeah. I didn't know your name. I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean to offend any if I did. But anyway, I used to do a lot of that myself back in the day. I myself spent a lot of time within the prison system. I've seen 7 or 8 different penitentiaries across Canada. And due to all that and my rediscovery, I call it a recovery, I rediscovered myself when I came out in 1989. That was the last time I ever spent time in jail. Guards were bringing me out, and they're saying we got to make it to the bus depot because you're going home. But I stood outside the prison, and I looked at the prison, and the guards were trying to rush me and everything, and I said, well, give me a minute. And I looked at the prison, and I stood there, and I said out loud my name in Cree. I said, let's go home. I guess it was a form of prayer at that time, you know, when I decided to do that. Because ever since then, in 1989, I've never seen the inside of a prison again. Long story short, you know, you said a lot of stuff, Bill, that kind of brought back a lot of memories about how I grew up. Pretty similar. And today, as an Escapios in this community, I don't only work in the Sundances. I wear this hat, and I was asked one time in Big River, where did you serve? Because it looks like a beret. Well, he designed it to be a beret. And it's like my rediscovery is right there in my culture. As an Escapios, a helper serving the elders in the ceremonies, I discovered myself. Nobody ever taught me, nobody ever told me that this is who you're supposed to be. I found myself there. Now today, I help out in all the funerals here in Onion Lake. I used to stand there where Brian is standing right now, with a man we all knew as late Bruce Whitstone. And I came here to support families as a singer, as an Escapios, a helper, all the time. And I could continue to do that today. And I'm really, really grateful for that rediscovery, as I call it. I rediscovered myself in that area, and that was my recovery too. And I really, 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 really commend you being present here tonight, because when I used to do these presentations in different communities all over Alberta, northern Alberta, I even went to the Criminal Justice Association Conference of Alberta in Red Deer for 4 years, and I talked to wardens and prison guards and anybody that had anything to do with the criminal justice system. And speaking in front of 400 people, you know, I guess I made an impact with some people there because some of them don't want to work in the system anymore because of the way I described how it was as an individual being in that situation and going out into the communities talking to people and stuff like that. You know, there are people that sometimes I bump into. A lady, as a matter of fact, who stands out really big in my mind is this lady from Kiwan. I went to a youth conference over there and I spoke to many people over there, and that one young lady came to me. I didn't even know her from a hole in the wall, and she come and gave me a hug, and she said, you know, I just had to do that. And I said, what for? And she looked at me, she says, you know, you came to our school and you spoke to us. What you talked about, the importance of education, is what you really drilled into me as an individual, she said. And like you, she graduated. She came from the university and got her degrees, 2 of them. And she wanted to thank me. And you really hit home with a lot of stuff that you talked about there. And I just wanted to thank you. But, you know, when I mentioned being in Escapa as a helper in these funerals and stuff like that, I just came from the other hall. One of my relatives is in a coffin there right now. I've seen a lot of that here, burying my own family members. And it's hard to see that. And then I get word that there was somebody else that OD'd and passed away today. But they made a mistake, I guess. But that scared the shit out of me, and I thought to myself, you know, my question is to you, if you were asked by your own community to help with the situation of the drug use, this meth, and all the stuff that's going on, what approach would you take to make something really effective to help a community fight this problem? Because I often wonder how Onion Lake can come together and, you know, deal with this situation, because I've seen how many young people, younger than me, laying in a coffin there because of this stupid drug. I guess I'm looking for a little bit of advice, you know, because I'd like to help continually. That's my question. Hi, thank you for being here. Really appreciate you guys.
You guys want to? Thank you for that, Pat. That's, you know, like, I thank you for your kind words. And to answer that question, you know, I'll do the best I can. This is one of the approaches that I wanted to use, and this is one of the approaches, is bringing other people to share their story, to have people not only here in person but out there on the live, or that can go back and rewatch our videos, that in hope that they take something from our stories on how we were resilient and coming back from addiction, being able to get up and, you know, get back on that journey, on our you know, journey, Red Road, and, you know, road to recovery, rediscovery. Yeah.
I guess my answer to that is really there has to be safety when somebody wants to start their journey. There has to be safety and the ability to start the journey without all of the distractions of people that are still in active addiction. people that would pull somebody back into active addiction, especially with the meth use. I mean, you're not thinking rationally at all, and it takes some significant time, weeks, months, for people to start actually thinking straight and really dig into recovery. So there just has to be the ability to stay somewhere safe and not have. And typically, it's an inpatient facility or a sober living facility in order to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the community's already doing some things right, like the trailers and Equiskeet and things like that, wellness center. I think back to that last year when I was on the streets, and the drop-in center was open back then, and it was a place that I could go, even though I was intoxicated or under the influence of drugs, where they still treated me like a human being, right? And that was a lot different than someone that seen me like panhandling outside of the store, right? People's opinions of me was very different. And so when I could go to a place where there was some non-judgmental approaches, regardless of what state that I was in, I think back to that, right? And I might not have got clean or sobered up then, but I can remember that, right? I can remember that in recovery, the people that were there for me despite what I was going through, despite what condition that I was in, somewhere to go where I did, had something warm to eat, a coffee, and, somewhere to just warm up so I didn't freeze to death, right? And then the staff there that were just non-judgmental and just accepted whatever state that I walked in there. And I look back to that, and that was crucial for me, even though I had no hope in my future whatsoever back then, I knew that there was staff there that seen something in me, right? Even when I didn't. And I think over time, the more people in the community that can view people from a different light, the more higher the chances that someone's eventually gonna seek through and accept help, right?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think every reserve is. I think we got to be supporting of one another. Right, I think we see it a lot on the res. It used to happen to me, and I kicked those people out of my life. And I am an alcoholic, so I don't really give advice. All the advice I ever gave, I couldn't even do it. But I remember people saying, when I got sober, and just have one. It's okay. You made it this far. We got to stop doing that and be supportive, right? Like I said earlier, we don't want to keep burying our own relatives, and now their drugs are harder. I remember my mom used to yell at me to sober up. It never worked. And ultimately now I think I've accepted, because I've gone into the field of social work as well. You do what you can. You do your best. I didn't get it till I wanted it. So I can see that in other people. I see myself, right? But that doesn't mean we shut the door on them, right? That doesn't mean we shut the door on them. We welcome them, talk to them like a normal human being. I think that's just being a human. That's all it takes. I think eventually they'll get it. There's really no other way.
Can I thank you for being in Escapios? Because I think that's, everywhere where we can help, we help, and giving a connection to a base that people can connect to. You're part of the solution. So, thank you.
I can only speak from my own experiences and what I've seen, and it doesn't mean it's across the board. Everyone has their own reasons and their own path that led them to addictions. The places I've been and the people I've dealt with, mental health and addictions have gone hand in hand. And there's a lot of trauma and a lot of untapped emotions that a lot of these people have gone through. And I drink because this person passed. I drink because of this. I do coke because of this. And sometimes it just takes a shoulder to lean on, an open ear, someone for them to talk to. A lot of communities, when someone wants to speak deeply about their emotions, they're kind of shut out. And we need to open up those avenues, let people speak about their emotions, just an open, non-judgmental ear, just to show that we're listening. And it can come from anyone. I think burying these emotions, unfortunately, it's a reason for people to pick up the bottle or pick up whatever drug of choice. So I think mental health services in town are important. And just that can also come from anybody. It can come from a family member, a neighbor, us. I enjoy talking to the people in the community and lending an ear. So I just think it's, having a non-judgmental person to talk to and using the services that we got.
Testing. Okay, here we go. I'd say I was fortunate enough for when I decided to sober up that there was a program like Residents in Recovery running, and just happened to have a bed available. But during those previous times when I had wanted to sober up, and I didn't have that sober, like a safe place to go to or a bed, it was right back to what I knew and what I used to do, which is crime and drug dealing and drug use, alcoholism, and just a vicious tornado of violence and crime, and just so I feel like if there was more sober living programs in communities like Onion Lake and surrounding areas, like just start with one. Start with one house, go from there, and then from there, it'll show that there will be people who want to sober up, and there will be some that fail. But just have that available to the people who need it, and eventually it'll grow from there, and then people will see other people who were in active addiction making changes in their life, living new lives. And then that will inspire other people to do the same. That's just how I feel about what could be used to combat drug addiction and alcoholism in this community.
It's on. What's your take, or like what do you think would be the best way to battle addiction, or what would be the best way to get drug abuse awareness or out of your... For me, I think the best way to be battling addictions and to get rid of it possibly is, how about we go back to the land? Return to culture, using bits and parts of the medicine wheel, using culture as an intervention tool. Because when you're on the land, it's peaceful out there. Years ago, I was on a dog sled up north. It was very peaceful riding on that dog sled. I felt all this freedom. I never experienced that before, and it was very therapeutic, a therapeutic sled ride. And it felt good after. I'll use my own daughter as an example. She was hooked on meth at one time, and she was very lost in it. she wanted to heal, so she went through psych wards. And after that, I took her to sweats, took her to night lodges. I detoxed her, de-stressed her. So I believe that culture will help us return to where we once were.
Thank you for that. You had a question, Dawn?
Yeah, I did. So there's always a point where you realize that you need to stop living your life the way you're currently living it. So I'm just wondering from each of you, what happened or where was that point that you reached where you said you could no longer live like that?
What was the point that, what?
Like at what point where or what happened where they thought to themselves that they could no longer live like that in addictions?
Oh, where we figured it out, where we needed to
Yeah,
the change?
at what point, where was the change? What was the light bulb that went on?
Okay, like I'll start with this one. For myself, it was just being tired of going in and out of jail, you know, and not being able to get my, you know, not feeling any love or any connection or anything to anybody like that. I needed to change because if I didn't change, I think I probably would have been long-term prison. And I knew I needed to change because I didn't want to be there. I didn't want that. I knew inside that I was a better person than what I was putting out there, and I wanted to go back to who I was before. That's where I knew I needed to change, is because I didn't want to go into long-term imprisonment. No?
For me, it was pretty much the same shit. Every day was like, it was just getting to be excessive. Then when I got arrested on this last time, at first I was angry that I had got arrested, and then after a few days of coming off the drugs and sobering up, not being hungover anymore, I started to think clearly again. And then I was like, well, so I was like, might as well start my recovery journey again. And then ended up going all the way to Regina. And then after I got out of quarantine, I walked into, got shown my new cell. As soon as the door closed, my cellmate turned around. He'd been napping, and he's like, "Do you drink?" And then I was like, "Well, might as well drink while I'm here till I get out." So, anyways, I ended up drinking for like 7 months after that, 2-3 times a week. And then towards the end of that, I was just like, I remember just deciding that I was gonna sober up from drugs and alcohol. And I was in a court. It's probably like half the size of a basketball court. Brick walls, is like 4 or 5 stories high with a big cage over it. And they allowed us to smudge in there, which was nice. So I remember just asking the guards for some smudge, and just going out there by myself. And it was sunny out that day, and I lit the smudge and I said a meaningful prayer. And that was the turning point. You know, I no longer felt alone. I just was ready to change things in my life. So I stopped associating with people making brews in there, and I started getting myself a bed lined up for residence and recovery, and then just asking my higher power to help me to straighten out. So I started getting, these things started happening in my life where I was getting these chances to sober up. You know, I got a bed, I got bail, And then after that, I just kept at it, you know, and so yeah.
For me, there was probably a few times I was ready to get clean. Well, not probably. There was a few times I was ready to get clean. I was certainly ready to change my life every time I went to jail. I just didn't know what that looked like or how to do it, and the support to figure that out wasn't available. So, I mean, the big difference the last time when I left jail and did figure it out was I had the support there that, you know, could sense that I actually wanted to change my life, and we came up with a plan. But, you know, I honestly believe that had those supports been available and opportunities to go to a program door to door from jail on one of those earlier times that I was incarcerated, I would have probably got clean then too.
I don't know why, but that question made me emotional. Like, I was just sitting here and I was just thinking to that last, the feeling. I was trying to remember back to the feeling that I had when I made that decision this last time around. And, you know, I remember being put in cuffs and I had warrants out for my arrest, and it's like, oh, we're going through this again. And, you know, I was at Late Tammy St. Germain's place that last time I got arrested. And I was so sick and withdrawing. And I remember her saying, do what you got to do and get your kids back. And it really stuck with me. And so in the coming weeks, as I sat in an isolation unit, because it was during COVID and I was withdrawing so bad they thought I had COVID. I remember just those words stuck with me, you know, and I saw my arrest that time as an opportunity, not as like this big horrible thing that happened to me like every time I got arrested, right? And so I seen it as an opportunity. And like I said earlier, that fear took over me, that gift of desperation, and I did not want to die. And I believed to my core if I got released from jail and used, I'd be dead. And so I made a decision at that point that I was going to do for myself what Les never got the opportunity to do, and I was going to show up and fight through hell to just keep living, you know, because he never got that opportunity. So that's what made that change for me.
That's you know, I think it was 2014. I spent a week with my daughter and her family. I got to Saskatoon and meet my dealer, and I was having an overdose. My throat was closing up, and I thought, you know, oh man, my mom's gonna find out. That's what I thought. I started drinking, and I pulled through. And the reason I share that is that as an addict, you know, anybody that has gone through that, we feel like invincible after that. You know? It's like we cheated death and we keep moving forward. But that wasn't for me. That wasn't my spot. We thought my daughter had been assaulted in daycare. You know, I told myself I wasn't going to be like my dad, because I grew up without my dad. But I was doing it. And I told her, Mom, okay, find out what happened. They lived in Medicine Hat, I lived in Fort McMurray. Find out what happened, I'll be there on my way. Instead, I ended up in Edmonton, drunk and high for 3 days. You know, I didn't show up. My buddy threw me some drugs. I was so paranoid driving down Highway 36 to Medicine Hat and going into these small towns. And I get there, and her mom left me the house, and she's just, you know, sometimes I've learned to not be emotional, and but my daughter, I was passing in and out because I hadn't slept in a few days, and my daughter went to the washroom alone. And now she's all alone with a dirty bum. and I'm passed out. So that was it. You know, I said, you know, that was me. I saw myself as a little kid. I grew up with the local winos. I know what it's like. I've seen my parents, one person stabbed the other. I created that environment for my daughter. And, you know, she's heard that now. She doesn't remember. She doesn't know. But that was that moment where I said, you know, I need help now. It wasn't, yeah, I went back to Fort McMurray, asked for help, and finally, you know, I started that process. It didn't go for me the first time. It was the second time. And then the third time I was sober, I had to deal with depression, you know. My brother Rambo committed suicide, and I had to ask for help again. I had to go through treatment for 2 weeks so I can, you know, not go down that path. So I'm very thankful for that, and that I was able, you know, I work for Syncard, you know. I realize that now, that not everybody has that privilege of, you know, someone dropping $50,000 on a treatment facility. So I'm very fortunate, and but yeah, that was the low of the low for me, and so it's always special now. And Judge, you got anything? No?
I like everything.
Officer? You're good? You sure? Okay. They told me they didn't have anything, so next question.
Okay. We'll try and wrap this up by 7 o'clock, so if we could make this short and sweet. Just like you.
Well, I had worked with the drug and alcohol abuse for a number of years, and I had a hard time growing up to be involved with our younger generation back in my time, because there's so much drugs and all, mainly alcohol. There's no weed, or at that time we never know what it was. It was just mainly alcohol. So, and I thought that wasn't a problem for me, you know. And like I said, well, I get drunk. I get so drunk, I fell down, no problem. No, I always use that as. But anyway, to you guys, what is tough love? Hey, what is tough love for you guys in your career?
Tough love, yeah. It's something we do on the res, you know, tough love. And I'll give you something to cry about, hey? Right? Today, I think it's a different time now, different generation. I wouldn't do that to my kids, right? And as much as people don't want to talk about it, it comes from a lot of intergenerational trauma and their past life that showed us the way. It's almost like racism, you know? It's like that mentality. I find that when you come to Alberta, there's like an entitlement. So I don't want to feel entitled to show someone tough love. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, no, I hate to cut you in there, because I had that once. Like, I've been in that addiction for many years. And I had a cousin. He was a good hockey player. That really makes me to hang on to him that time. But he likes his drinking. He was just like Gretzky, that guy. He was playing for a team here in Alberta. So what I did was, well, if you're going to continue to play here, you're going to have to listen to my rules, or else down the road. So he didn't have no place. He's from out here in Little Pine. And that's a long ways from Alberta for him to come home, especially 30, 40 below.
So these are some of the things that I went through as tough love. To kick my own cousin out in the cold weather, 30, 40 below, because I don't want no alcohol in my... That's the same treatment I did with my kids. My oldest son, he was a suicidal. 4 times he was trying to commit suicide, trying to hang himself. And I said, son, don't do it here. Go do it somewhere else. I don't want you to rot here. I mean, these are some of the things. We tried everything in any way. That's what I'm saying. You got to go beyond to try everything to work. Like for me, our practices like Sundance, powwow, round dance, all these ones helped me a lot. That Sundance awakened me one time here in Onion Lake when I was drinking. I don't know where I was in the bush. I was lost and I didn't know what to do, and I started hearing something. And here it was these drums, these hand drums they use in the Sundance, and that's what I heard. Finally, I started to make my way. That's where I found myself slowly. I didn't expect to sober up that time. Like what I said, I had to go through lots. I had to go all kinds of training. I had to get my butt kicked all the time. The main one that I could always really proud of is my late wife. He was a Sioux Indian, very mean, I thought he was. But it was tough love, I guess. Yeah, but anyway, lots that I know, because I went through all kinds of training. I was a teacher, I worked for penitentiary and this and that. I was going to go on, but kids told me, no, whatever you have, that's good enough as long as you eat. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank everybody. A lot of good stories. We know we have so much here to share, but we have to continue to do this. We have to continue to do this. Thank you very much. You have all safe trip. Kami up mohtana ite ko tapik sinye kita ko huigi nas kam na hexe hey
Top boy. And because you shared some information about yourself with me, I'm trying to answer this the best way I can. Because there's a certain level of professionalism that you have to follow, and ethics and all that stuff. Tough love looks different nowadays. My daughter has a timer on her phone. That can be tough love, because children are so much addicted. But tough love in that generation shows up in this generation with a young man that I spoke with today who's 20 years old. There's kids that I meet. I remember where they sit. A young man in northern Alberta sometimes misses school because he's afraid his mother's going to OD. The young man I talked to today, I said, I'm proud of you, man. And I could see him tearing up, and he said, nobody's ever said that to me. That generation of tough love shows up in our youth today. That behavior that we so freely speak about with humor tells these young kids that it's shameful to talk about whatever you're going through. So, there's times where I do that with my kid and I catch myself. It's not a right way to do things. I won't give her everything, but I'm also not going to give my kid an ultimatum. So there's that's kind of my take on it. So I'll just say my thank you, Masicho Haihain and Anaskaman, for having me these last couple of days. It's something pretty cool to be a part of. I can see. Sometimes I feel like I don't do enough, but appreciate the gentleman. The things that I talk about trigger stuff in you that you're able to have a conversation, and that's always my goal, because on the res we're told to keep our mouth shut and not talk about anything. So once again, hi, nanaskaman masicho.
What do you guys think? It's 5-7. Yeah, we got to go to, Willis and I got to go to the hockey game. Is there any other questions before we go? If not, then I think we can call it a night here. We appreciate you all for coming out. We appreciate you all for tuning in on 7Gen, Facebook and YouTube. You know, we hope that all of our stories here and our testimonies and everything that we've shared are impactful within our community. So with that, I bid you all a thank you and a good night. Hi. Again, a round of applause for everybody that came out. Thank you guys for coming out, being a part of this, making it a success. Thank you.